The text message arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that would change everything. Alex seems a bit stressed lately. Just normal teenage stuff, right? Susan Chun typed the message to her husband David while sitting in the Jefferson Middle School parking lot, watching their 13-year-old son walk toward their car after another mandatory counseling session. David's reply came instantly. Totally normal. Remember how moody we were at 13? He'll grow out of it. Neither parent could have imagined that their son's normal teenage stress was actually a carefully concealed plan to commit the deadliest school attack in their state's history. And the only one who recognized the truth was Echo, a German therapy dog whose instincts would expose what every adult had missed. Alex slid into the back seat, earbuds already in place, his face a mask of practiced indifference. "How was the session, honey?" Susan asked, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. Alex shrugged without looking up from his phone. "Fine, same stuff. Breathing exercises and whatever." This was the conversation that had repeated dozens of times over the past 6 months. Alex would attend his weekly sessions with the school counselor. Susan and David would ask perfunctory questions, and everyone would continue pretending that everything was perfectly normal. The Mindy's AI therapy app that Alex used daily consistently reported mild stress indicators and normal adolescent adjustment, reinforcing the family's comfortable assumption that their son was just experiencing typical teenage difficulties. But inside Jefferson Middle School, Echo had been tracking Alex's psychological deterioration with the precision of a biological early warning system. The German Shepherd had been working as a therapy dog for 3 years, trained to detect emotional distress and provide comfort to students struggling with various challenges. Unlike the adults in Alex's life, Echo wasn't influenced by wishful thinking or social expectations about teenage behavior. Dr. Sarah Williams, Jefferson's head counselor, reviewed Alex's file that evening with the same mild concern she felt about dozens of other students. The AI-generated reports painted a picture of a slightly anxious teenager dealing with social pressures and academic stress. Nothing in Alex's profile suggested he posed any danger to himself or others. "Typical case," she murmured to herself, making notes for Alex's next session. "Social anxiety, some difficulty with peer relationships, but within normal parameters." The AI assessment shows steady improvement over the past month. What Dr. Williams didn't know was that Alex had learned to game the AI system with surgical precision. He had studied the app's response patterns, understanding exactly which answers would generate stable ratings while concealing his true psychological state. The algorithm was designed to identify keywords and speech patterns associated with various mental health conditions. But Alex had become expert at avoiding trigger words while maintaining the appearance of honest engagement. Susan Chen served dinner that night, with the same routine questions that had become meaningless through repetition. "How was school, Alex?" "Fine. Any homework tonight?" "Some. Everything okay with your friends?" "Yeah." David looked up from his phone long enough to add his own contribution. "At least he's not giving us the silent treatment anymore. Remember last month when we couldn't get 2 words out of him? This is definitely progress." But the progress was actually something far more sinister. Alex had learned that minimal engagement satisfied his parents' need to feel involved while allowing him to maintain the privacy necessary to continue his preparations. His parents' relief at his improved communication was actually celebration of his enhanced ability to deceive them. Echo had been trying to sound the alarm for weeks. During group therapy sessions, the German Shepherd would position himself as far as possible from Alex, his body language conveying discomfort that Dr. Williams attributed to the dog sensing Alex's general anxiety. When Alex walked through common areas, Echo's hackles would rise slightly, and he would track the teenager's movements with intense focus. The signs were subtle, but unmistakable to anyone trained in canine behavior. Echo's stress indicators around Alex had been escalating steadily. Excessive panting during sessions with Alex present, reluctance to approach him during group activities, and an overall increase in protective behaviors when Alex was nearby. But these signals were interpreted as the dog responding to Alex's emotional state rather than recognizing him as a potential threat. At home, Alex's parents continued to find comfort in their family's apparent normalcy. "I was worried about him for a while," Susan confided to her sister during their weekly phone call. How teenage boys can get so withdrawn and angry. But his counselor says he's doing fine, and the therapy app we got him shows he's making real progress. The conversation took place while Alex sat in his bedroom, methodically researching explosive compounds and studying floor plans of Jefferson Middle School that he had downloaded from the school district's public records. His browser history showed a progression that would have terrified his parents. But Alex had learned to use private browsing modes and clear his digital tracks after each research session. David bragged to his coworkers about Alex's improvement. Kids bounce back so fast at that age. 6 months ago, we were dealing with typical teenage attitude and moodiness. Now he's communicating better, seems more focused. Sometimes I think we parents worry too much about normal growing pains. But Alex's improvement was actually the calm that comes with resolved purpose. He had moved beyond the internal conflict and uncertainty that had characterized his earlier behavior and settled into the methodical planning phase of his attack. His apparent emotional stability wasn't healing. It was the dangerous composure of someone who had committed to violence. The only one who understood the truth was Echo, whose evolutionary instincts were calibrated to recognize predatory behavior regardless of how well it was concealed. The German Shepherd had detected chemical changes in Alex's scent profile that indicated elevated stress hormones and aggressive pheromones. More importantly, Echo's training had taught him to identify the subtle behavioral patterns that preceded violent action. 3 weeks before Alex's planned attack, Echo's behavior around him escalated dramatically. During a routine therapy session, the dog refused to remain in the same room as Alex, whining and pawing at the door until Dr. Williams allowed him to leave. She noted the incident in Alex's file, but attributed it to the dog having an off day. Even therapy dogs have moods, she explained to Susan during a follow-up call. Echo probably sensed that Alex was having a particularly stressful week. Animals are very empathetic that way. But Echo's distress wasn't empathy, it was alarm. The dog had detected something that no human in Alex's life had recognized. The scent signature of someone preparing for violence. Military and police dogs are trained to identify this specific combination of stress chemicals, adrenaline markers, and behavioral indicators that precede attacks. Echo's response was an attempt to warn the humans around him that a predator was active in their environment. Susan mentioned Echo's behavior to David over dinner, with Alex sitting quietly at the table, absorbing every word of their analysis. The therapy dog at school has been acting strange around Alex. Dr. Williams thinks the dog is just picking up on Alex's stress levels and trying to be helpful. Alex almost smiled at how perfectly his deception was working. Even the adult's concerns were being reinterpreted in ways that supported his cover story. Maybe the dog doesn't like me, he suggested, knowing his parents would immediately reassure him that wasn't possible. Dogs love everyone, honey, Susan said predictably. He's probably just trying to figure out how to help you feel better. That's what therapy dogs do. The family's faith in Alex's fundamental goodness made them incapable of interpreting Echo's warnings accurately. They couldn't imagine that their quiet, somewhat withdrawn teenager was capable of planning mass murder. So they found alternative explanations for every piece of evidence that contradicted their assumptions. Dr. Williams scheduled a meeting with Alex's parents 2 weeks before the attack. Not because she suspected anything dangerous, but because Echo's continued agitation around Alex had become disruptive to the therapy program. I wanted to discuss some adjustments to Alex's treatment plan, she explained to Susan and David as they sat in her office. Is something wrong? Susan asked, immediately defensive. Alex has been doing so much better lately. Even his grades are improving. Nothing's wrong, Dr. Williams assured them. Alex is making excellent progress according to all our measures. The AI assessment shows consistent improvement in his stress indicators, and he's been more engaged in our sessions. It's just that Echo, our therapy dog, seems to be having difficulty working with Alex specifically. David frowned. What kind of difficulty? Echo becomes agitated when Alex is present. He's never shown this behavior with any other student. We're thinking it might be helpful to transition Alex to individual counseling sessions without Echo present, at least temporarily. Susan and David exchange glances. Could Alex be allergic to dogs? Susan suggested. Maybe Echo senses that Alex is uncomfortable around him. Dr. Williams nodded, though she knew Alex had never shown any signs of dog allergies. That's certainly possible. Some students have sensitivities that aren't immediately obvious. The important thing is that Alex continues to receive support, and we want to make sure he's in the most comfortable environment possible. Alex sat silently during this discussion, maintaining the slightly bored expression that adults had come to expect from teenagers during conversations about their welfare. Inside, he was calculating how Echo's removal from his sessions would actually benefit his timeline. Without the dog present, he could focus entirely on maintaining his facade without the distraction of Echo's constant vigilance. "Whatever's best for Alex," David said. "We just want him to keep making progress." "Absolutely," Dr. Williams agreed. "And he is making remarkable progress. His emotional regulation has improved significantly, and he seems much more stable than when we first started working together. I think we're on exactly the right track." The meeting concluded with everyone feeling satisfied that they were acting in Alex's best interests. His parents drove home confident that their son was in good hands and making excellent progress. Dr. Williams updated Alex's file to reflect the new individual session structure, and Alex realized that he had successfully eliminated the only threat to his plans. But Echo wasn't finished trying to protect his school. The German Shepherd's distress around Alex had become so severe that he had begun refusing to enter areas of the building where Alex spent time. He would plant himself in hallways leading to Alex's classroom, whining softly as if trying to warn anyone who would listen that danger was present. The custodial staff began to notice Echo's behavior patterns. "That therapy dog's been acting weird lately," one of them mentioned to the head of security. "Keeps hanging around the 8th grade wing like he's guarding something." But without context to understand what Echo was trying to communicate. The humans interpreted his behavior as random quirkiness rather than urgent warning signals. The dog's attempts to establish a protective perimeter around Alex's activities were seen as amusing canine eccentricities rather than security alerts. 5 days before Alex's planned attack, Echo made his most desperate attempt to communicate the danger. During the school's weekly assembly, as students filed into the auditorium, Echo broke from his handler's control and ran directly to where Alex was sitting. Instead of offering comfort or support, the German Shepherd began barking urgently at Alex, his body posture aggressive and threatening. The outburst caused a commotion that required 3 staff members to restrain Echo and remove him from the auditorium. Dr. Williams was mortified by the incident, immediately calling Susan and David to apologize for the therapy dog's inappropriate behavior. "I'm so sorry this happened," she told them over the phone. "Echo has never behaved this way before. We're having him evaluated by the veterinary behaviorist to make sure there isn't an underlying medical issue causing this aggression." Susan was concerned about Alex's reaction to being singled out in front of his peers. "How is Alex handling it? Was he frightened?" "Alex actually handled it very well," Dr. Williams reported. "He seemed completely unfazed by the incident. Very mature response for someone his age." What Dr. Williams didn't realize was that Alex's calm reaction was another red flag. A typical 13-year-old would have been embarrassed, upset, or confused by being the target of an aggressive dog's attention in front of their classmates. Alex's lack of emotional response suggested someone who felt no genuine surprise or fear, because he understood exactly why the dog was targeting him. That evening, Alex's parents discussed the incident over dinner, with Alex listening quietly as they analyzed the situation in his presence. "Maybe Echo is picking up on something we're missing," Susan suggested tentatively. "Dogs have incredible senses about people." David immediately dismissed this possibility. The dog was probably just having a bad day. Animals can be unpredictable. The important thing is that Alex wasn't hurt and didn't let it upset him. Shows how much stronger he's gotten emotionally. Alex nodded at appropriate moments, offering minimal commentary while internally celebrating his parents' inability to interpret the dog's warnings. Their determination to view him as a normal teenager dealing with ordinary stress had become the perfect camouflage for his extraordinary plans. 3 days later, Echo's desperate warnings would finally be understood. But only after the German Shepherd took the unprecedented step of physically intervening to prevent catastrophe. His refusal to accept adult dismissal of his alarm signals would save hundreds of lives, when every human system designed to protect children had failed to recognize the threat hiding in plain sight. The morning of the planned attack arrived gray and cold, with Alex moving through his routine with the methodical calm of someone whose waiting was finally over. His backpack contained the device he had been perfecting for months, carefully concealed among normal school supplies. His parents wished him a good day, as they had every morning, completely unaware that they were sending their child to commit mass murder, but Echo was waiting. The German Shepherd had positioned himself near the school's main entrance, his entire body radiating tension as he scanned each arriving student. When Alex approached the building, Echo's reaction was immediate and unmistakable. The dog lunged forward, clamping his jaws around Alex's wrist just as the teenager reached for his backpack's hidden compartment. The device Alex had spent months constructing spilled onto the concrete, its purpose immediately clear to every adult who witnessed the scene. Dr. Williams arrived within seconds, her face draining of color as she realized how catastrophically wrong she had been about Alex's mental state. "Oh my God," she whispered, staring at the partially assembled explosive that would have devastated the crowded school auditorium. Echo tried to warn us. He knew. Alex sat motionless in the principal's office as emergency responders swarmed the building, the reality of his exposure settling over him like a suffocating weight. The hatred that had consumed him for months seemed to evaporate, replaced by crushing shame and disbelief at how close he had come to destroying everything. The investigation that followed revealed the systematic failures that had nearly led to tragedy. Alex's parents were forced to confront the devastating truth that their son's normal teenage stress had been a carefully maintained facade concealing months of radicalization and planning. Susan Chen's text messages to friends became evidence in a case study about parental denial. "He's been doing so much better lately. Much more communicative and stable. We were worried for nothing." The messages were sent just hours before Alex planned to detonate his bomb in a crowded school assembly. Echo received a hero's commendation from the Department of Homeland Security. But for the German Shepherd, the recognition was less important than the knowledge that his pack was safe. The dog had spent weeks trying to communicate danger that no human could recognize, using every tool available to him until finally resorting to direct physical intervention. Dr. Williams testified before the school board about the limitations of current threat assessment protocols. "We had every technological tool available," she explained. AI monitoring systems, behavioral assessment algorithms, regular counseling sessions, but none of our sophisticated methods detected what a therapy dog recognized through pure instinct. The Mindy's AI therapy app was suspended pending a comprehensive review of its threat detection capabilities. The system had been designed to avoid false positives that might stigmatize students. But this conservative approach had created a dangerous blind spot that Alex had exploited with devastating effectiveness. Alex's case became a landmark study in teenage radicalization and the failure of adult support systems to recognize genuine threats. His parents' well-meaning attempts to normalize his behavior had inadvertently provided cover for his planning, while the therapy protocols designed to help him had become tools for maintaining his deception. 6 months later, Echo continued his work as Jefferson Middle School's therapy dog. But his role had expanded beyond emotional support to include threat detection. His ability to recognize dangerous intentions that sophisticated technology had made him an irreplaceable part of the school's security infrastructure. Susan and David Chun faced the devastating realization that their assumption of their son's fundamental goodness had nearly cost hundreds of lives. Their faith in normalcy, their relief at apparent progress, and their trust in technology had all contributed to a catastrophic failure of protection that was only prevented by a German Shepherd's refusal to accept human denial. "We thought we knew our child," Susan told investigators during her testimony. "Every signal, every piece of evidence pointed to improvement. The counselor said he was doing well. The AI app said he was getting better. We saw what we wanted to see instead of what was really there." Echo had proven that sometimes the most sophisticated systems can be the most easily deceived, while the ancient partnership between humans and dogs still offered irreplaceable protection against threats that hide behind familiar faces and comfortable assumptions. The German Shepherd's instinctive recognition of danger had saved lives when every adult in Alex's world had chosen to believe that evil couldn't exist in the form of a stressed but seemingly normal teenager.